YouTuber named Steve Cronin recently made a response video to a BBC production about so-called smart drugs. And the reason for his response is because he claims that the BBC production makes a series of assertions that he's not comfortable with. And the reason for my response is because Steve Cronin makes a series of assertions that I'm not comfortable with. And I believe that it seriously showcases that he does not even have the most novice level understandings on the subjects of which he speaks.
So needless to say, this guy has a bad experience while taking the modafinil. He encounters some of the usual side effects like the headaches and the inability to sleep, like feeling kind of restless because his mind is racing.
I know people who are sitting there right now who actually understand these drugs are thinking, hello, earth deceive, side effects. Those are what are known as effects. That is what the drug was designed to do. If you read the package insert, modafinil is indicated to improve wakefulness in adult patients with excessive sleepiness associated with narcolepsy, obstructive sleep apnea, and shift work disorder. He pretends that what the drug was designed for is merely a side effect that affects some people. But most people, it just makes you like Bradley Cooper from Limitless, of course.
So while this guy does take modafinil, it doesn't seem like he's taking it under the care of a physician. Like, he consults with the doctor in the beginning, but when he takes it and then at the end of the first evening, he says that he can't go to sleep because his mind is racing and he has all these thoughts in his head. Whereas if he was under the care of a physician and he noticed this issue, maybe he would have called this physician and said, hey, I'm experiencing X. And really, like, if you take something and you have a response that is too intense for you, do you really need a physician to tell you to take less?
You see, here's the problem with that. When you mislead people and grossly exaggerate the effects of the drug, you put physicians and medical professionals in an awkward bind. When you send people to the doctor's office with false expectations about a drug, and you send them there asking for a drug to produce effects that it simply is not capable of doing, you make it difficult for the doctors, you make it difficult for the medical professionals. They're going to go there and they're going to say, I'm sorry, this drug simply cannot produce the effects that you are looking for. It's like if I went to a pilot and I said, you know, I want this 747 to be a boat. They're going to tell me, look, this is a 747. It's meant to fly in the sky, not to cruise down a river. When you mislead people and grossly misrepresent the truth and facts, and in such an incomprehensibly irresponsible manner, you push people away from medical professionals. Now, those are just the people who can actually afford to see a doctor. And you push them to people online, the self-professed experts, the biohackers, whatever that is. And they're going to go on there and they're going to say, well, Steve Cronin, he's a biohacker. He's obviously such a massive, knowledgeable expert. I'm going to listen to him. My doctor tells me one thing, and it's different from all these experts online. And I guess I'm going to listen to them. Right? Does that sound like a good idea to you?
So the guy, he orders his modafinil from what I perceive to be modafinilcat.com, although he doesn't reveal the website in the video. And he kind of makes this claim that when you order modafinil from modafinilcat.com, you don't really know what you're getting.
That's exactly right, you don't.
But when you order from Modafinilcat, like, you receive the modafinil or armodafinil, whatever product you're ordering, within the pharmaceutical packaging from the pharmacy directly. So while it's possible, yeah, like, you can order something and it's some third party, like, sneakily, like, you know, just changed what was inside of there. If it's sealed and it's in the pharmacy's packaging, I think that's pretty unlikely.
Really? So if I order a Rolex online and it comes in the Rolex box, it must be a real Rolex. Or if I'm walking down the street and I see a Louis Vuitton bag and it's got the little tag on it, it must be a real Louis Vuitton bag because it has the little tag on it. Of course it's going to come in the package. It's the whole point of counterfeiting something. Last year there were a series of hospitalizations stemming from counterfeit Valium that people were purchasing online. They traced this Valium back to a pharmaceutical manufacturer, a real pharmaceutical manufacturer. And you know what that package said? Right on the label, it said Valium. You know what it wasn't? Valium. Even for those factories approved by the Food and Drug Administration to sell pharmaceuticals to U.S. pharmacies, Every year there are factories that get banned for not adhering to quality standards, to safety standards, not allowing for sufficient inspections, and these are for the most heavily regulated, inspected, and watched manufacturers. Once you step outside of the heavily regulated pharmaceutical industry, the inspections and safety standards and regulations drop off precipitously. If you look at the supplement industry, which is a quasi-regulated industry, it's really so unregulated that most people consider it to be not regulated. But if we look at stories from just last year the FDA cracked down on the supplement industry for adding non-FDA approved ingredients into the supplements. Because as most people know, most supplements don't work. And it's not because the people selling the supplements don't want them to work, it's because if a compound actually does do what it says it does, it becomes a pharmaceutical compound and they make billions of dollars instead of what is comparatively a lot less money. So it's a struggle for them to find things that actually work that they can put into it. So what the industry has been doing is taking pharmaceutical compounds, things based off of amphetamine or methamphetamine, for example, and making slight changes to them and then adding them into the supplement, because those compounds actually do work. But the trouble is that those compounds are not FDA approved and they're not evaluated for safety or any of those things because it's a supplement, it's not regulated. And as a result, the FDA finally cracked down on this practice because these drugs often have very powerful and toxic effects. Quite often they are a lot worse than the pharmaceutical compounds they're based off of. If they were better or the same, they would have been developed into a pharmaceutical. But since they generally tend to be more dangerous, to produce a less effective effects or super effective effects, but with more side effects. For example, most drugs that are amphetamine based are incredibly neurotoxic. But they're added into a lot of weight loss products because they promote weight loss, and they're added into a lot of things like pre-workout because they provide a lot of energy. So yet, even with all these issues, with our heavily regulated industry, with our quasi to non-regulated industries, but still technically somewhat watched and trusted, Steve Cronin proposes that you go online to a website and in fact reacts with incredulity at the thought of people thinking, well, maybe it's not such a good idea to order from a website that has absolutely no safeguards, no inspections, no quality controls, no safety controls, and is quite flagrantly breaking the law. Because that's someone I can trust.
I've never heard a story explaining that someone received something that was not modafinil or armodafinil from modafinilcat.com. He just says it's possible.
That's funny, because before I made this YouTube channel, I never heard of the effects that you're describing. Never heard of it. I've been working in a pharmacy for years, been working in an insurance company for years. Never heard anyone describe the effects that you describe. And I can name at least 15 people off the top of my head who I know for a fact take this on a daily basis. Never heard of it. And it really goes back to my point about having absolutely no idea about what you're taking, what you're ordering online. You have no clue what's in there. The simple fact is what you describe does not match the pharmacological profiles of these drugs. When you say that modafinil is here, adrafinil is way down here, and armodafinil is all the way at the top, you really showcase your ignorance and total lack of understanding on the subject. Adrafinil is a prodrug to modafinil. When you take adrafinil, it becomes modafinil. Modafinil at a steady state is 90% armodafinil. These drugs are so alike and so similar, you could easily describe them as the Ferrari, Blue Steel, and the Tigra of drugs.
So, one of the lines in the movie that kind of like really has stuck with me is that he took a huge risk taking the pills. And he said that before he even seemed to do any kind of research on what he was doing. And so I think that the narrator in this video kind of perpetuates the idea of someone being extremely irresponsible.
I think the only one being irresponsible here is you. You're some guy who has no clue about what he's talking about, who does not even possess the most rudimentary knowledge in biology, of pharmacology, of chemistry, of physiology, of, from what I can tell, just about anything. And yet you're proposing that people follow your advice, and to disregard the most basic common sense in ordering things online for which you have no idea what you're getting. You had people last year who did the same thing with Valium, and you know what they got? A hospitalization. You have people who had been ordering millions of supplements from stores in the United States who had been getting amphetamine drips, who had been poisoning their brain. And yet you think it's a great idea to order it for some totally unregulated, unwatched source without even a shred of oversight. That to me sounds like the definition of an irresponsible person. Thanks again for pointing that one out to me, because that was one of the most ludicrous things I have ever seen, and I will not allow people to be poisoned by nonsense like that. So if you see something else, just let me know. I would be happy to address it. I hope you all found this helpful, and I will see you next time.